Mike and Quita, it's often said you need money to make money. Cities operate under that same premise, which is why so many give it away in order to attract businesses and events. In fact, the Defenders uncovered Austin has given away more than $36 million the last 3 years. When you play a game, your next move is often dependent on how much money you have in the bank. Running a city is similar. You collect fees in order to keep the game going. Like a fee for a building permit, a landscape inspection, or security for a big event. But in order to land a good festival, business, or development, many cities like Austin sometimes waive those fees.
What was surprising is how little we really know about how these fees are waived.
Tom Smith is the former director of Public Citizen Austin, a nonprofit watchdog group that fears the city is playing games with your money.
When there's thousands of dollars going out the door that isn't being reported on the fee waiver spreadsheets, it's hard to know whether or not we're going to have enough to pay staff or whether or not we're going to have to cover a shortfall.
A recent audit found the city of Austin isn't sure how many fees are being waived.
Some departments said, yes, we waive fees, but we don't know how much. So at the point that we had that information, I would say that the 16 million is a very rough estimate.
And that's outrageous. You know, our government is supposed to be able to account for its budget.
Take Austin's Smart Housing program. It's designed to increase affordable housing. Developers often get fees waived to bring in more affordable units.
With the Smart Housing program, we know we waived $3 million of fees at least, but we don't know whether there were other fees associated with that. And I am not sure yet how many units those $3 million helped create.
From affordable housing to convention center events to festivals and parades, the amount of money Austin is giving away keeps rising.
It's a multi-million-dollar problem.
The Defenders uncovered fee waivers have nearly doubled in 2 years' time, from $8.9 million in 2014 to $16.2 million in 2016, compared to the more than $110 million in fees, fines, permits, and inspections the city collects each year.
We depend on fees and charges like that in order to support our budget. And if we keep giving away the fees, we're not having enough money to take care of our basic needs, whether it be roads and bridges, sewers or water, all these other things that we depend on fees to pay for.
Each council member can waive up to $6,000 a year in fees. In 2016, council members waived more than $43,000 in fees for things like the Martin Luther King Day March and Veterans Day Parade. Even South by Southwest gets certain fees waived.
Most of the charges that we've been talking about over the last couple of years are those associated with barricading the roads, increased public safety costs, and those aren't directly related to the South by Southwest conference itself, but more the increased activity in that area.
Fee waivers in and of themselves aren't a bad idea.
In fact, in most cities, they are part of the cost of doing business. But you want people to read what's in the cards.
To make sure every time a fee waiver is granted, it gets reported on into one central database.
A move the city of Austin has vowed to change so it can stop rolling the dice with your tax dollars. Efforts are underway to change the way fees are tracked as recommended by that city audit. It will be a big project for our new city manager who starts February 12th. To see a detailed list of the known fees city departments are waiving, go to this story at kview.com. For the Defenders, I'm Terry Gruca.
Tonight we are talking about Vibrio vonificus. Now, that's a word some of you may not have heard before, but it's commonly known as flesh-eating bacteria. You've also may have heard that you can get it at the beach. Well, with so many stories out there about this, we wanted to know what's real and what's fake. We do want to warn you, there are some graphic images in this story. The summer season is knocking on your door. Chances are the idea of a great beach vacation is something you're trying to squeeze in your budget. You don't have to go far, though. You can head on down to the Gulf Coast. But there's a secret. This seagull-shaped thing, otherwise known as Vibrio vonificus, lurks in the Texas beaches you and your family may take a dip in. And trust me, it's no friend to humans. It's a form of flesh-eating bacteria. To get to the bottom of this, our search to know more starts with the 214-mile trip to Galveston. We went to go see infectious disease clinic director Dr. Alfred Scott Lee with the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston, and we interviewed him with questions about Vibrio vulnificus. Let's break it down for us, fact versus fiction when it comes to this.
Probably the biggest myth that I hear is people worry about this going onto the beach.
Wait, did we just hear that right?
Probably the biggest myth that I hear is people worry about this going onto the beach.
Dr. Lee says the bacteria occurs most often in warm, muddy water, not bodies of water like the Gulf of Mexico. The Vibrio family seems to have an attraction to the mucky bottom of warm, semi-salty standing water like the coastal bays and mouths of rivers. So question 1, we wanted to know if you swallow some of this brackish water or if it gets in your eyes, could Vibrio vulnificus live in your body? Dr. Lee says that's false.
The mucosal membranes will take care of you. It has to get past the barriers of the body.
Question 2, what about using hand sanitizer to kill it?
There's no data, scientific or otherwise, that suggests that alcohol-based hand wash will keep this away.
Dr. Lee says research right now points to flesh wounds of any size as the main culprit of getting Vibrio vulnificus while out in the water. Once it enters your body, Dr. Lee says the trouble begins. So think about it this way, Vibrio vulnificus, it starts with a battle between your white and red blood cells. Dr. Lee says the bacteria actually breaks its way into a layer of flesh between the skin and the muscles. And after a period of about 2 to 5 days, the bacteria can spread like wildfire. But get this, the odds of actually getting it are 1 in a million here in Texas.
10% of people will wind up with an amputation. Probably 80% will lose some amount of tissue from their legs or their extremities, and there's a 60% mortality rate.
Over the last 15 years, we have seen a gradual increase in Vibrio vulnificus in Texas. Take a look at this. In 2001, 14 cases were reported. 2015, 35 cases were reported. Dr. Lee says most of the cases are in Galveston and Harris counties. So what's causing this increase? Well, Dr. Lee says people recognize the disease more and report it, which is required by state law. Healthcare providers, hospitals, laboratories, schools have to fill out this form for patients who are suspected of having Vibrio within 1 day to the Health and Human Services Department. Symptoms such as high fever, sepsis, chills are common. We learned this form of bacteria doesn't discriminate. We found that 1 in a million person in Buda. Adrian Ruiz is doing what he loves to do, barbecue.
You gotta season it real good because it's gonna go down real good tomorrow.
Father's Day weekend to Port Aransas changed Ruiz's life. He developed this rash on his leg. Turns out doctors diagnosed him with Vibrio vulnificus. The germ caused a 4-month ordeal to the Ruiz family. Adrian's leg swelled twice its normal size with blisters the size of grapes.
When I had the rash, it was like being set on fire where this rash was around my leg.
Ruiz immediately thought he was going to lose his leg, but doctors were able to save it. Now this is what you see when you look at his leg. The staples are out and the skin graft is on. It's 85% healed, but his leg still swells a little. This is the second time he's had a medical condition with his legs. Through it all, he finds time for a little humor.
Man, I need to take care of my legs, I guess, a little better.
I told him he's like a cat with 9 lives and he's using them up.
Adrian does not want that to happen because he plans on going fishing again. So to sum this all up, cases of Vibrio vulnificus are extremely rare, and that has been verified.
It's one of, if not the biggest problems in Austin, affordability. And part of the reason is there's not enough homes to go around, driving up the cost of rent, houses, and property appraisals. So when the state of Texas decided to sell these 75 acres in central Austin instead of turning it into a cemetery.
Here's downtown. The property is about 30 blocks north.
Developer ARG Bull Creek snatched it up. Their concept seemed simple enough.
Turn this open space in the heart of Austin into a major housing development filled with more than 1,400 homes, priced between $1.2 million and $180,000, plus apartments, business space, retail, and parks. But in a city known for keeping it weird, nothing is ever that simple.
And a year and a half later, the Grove development is still waiting for approval from the city council. So what's the issue? Well, there are several.
Let's start with the basics. Why does the developer need the city council's approval in the first place?
ARG Bull Creek wants to build the Grove as a planned unit development, or PUD. This way they can fit more houses and businesses onto the property.
And the developer says it will allow them to fit more affordable housing onto this site. To become a PUD, the development has to meet standards of a superior development. Citizen commission, city staff, neighbors, and the developer have gone round and round fighting about the amount of park space and affordable housing. But as of today, the development is considered superior. But there are a few more issues.
A major one is some people who live in the area aren't crazy about the plans. They're concerned about the size, density, and traffic. These neighbors make up the Bull Creek Road Coalition, a group co-founded by Leslie Poole, who is now a council member.
While the development isn't in Poole's district, it is literally right across the street.
Which brings up the issue of the upcoming November election. Poole is up for re-election, and her opponent, Natalie Galden, helped create the neighborhood group that supports the development. Councilmember Sherry Gallo, who represents the district the Grove is actually in, is also up for re-election.
And the Grove has become a political football amongst the candidates. Oh, and did we mention the traffic?
3 of the city's traffic engineers did a study on the project. Our news partners at The Statesman found out their names and some of their findings were removed from the final version of the study before it was turned over to council. It's estimated the traffic will double in some areas, leaving the stakeholders at odds over how it should be managed and who should pay for it. During its last meeting, the city council took the first of 3 votes to move forward with the project, but all of the details still have to be worked out. Ashley Goodo, KVUE News.
Sometimes the toughest part of any sport is getting kids to play.
It's a sad, sad world we live in.
70% of children drop out of organized sports by the time they're 13. It's how the trophy generation was born. A way to encourage kids to get into the game. Yet a growing number of parents, like Brandy Borchert, are growing tired of kids getting trophies just for participating in sports.
You lose, you get a trophy, like that's not cool to me. Like it doesn't prepare them for life, that's not real life.
Or is it?
But I don't think you're teaching kids how to lose. You want them to participate, you want them to be out there.
Not exactly what you'd expect one of the winningest coaches in history to say, right? Barry Switzer is a legendary former Dallas Cowboys and University of Oklahoma football coach.
I think there's a couple of things you want to accomplish. You want the kids to be able to participate. And the only way you can participate is encourage them to participate. And if there's some maybe reward, a gift in doing that, that helps them.
But up to a certain age, and then the winning and losing of life and how we teach children to handle that becomes critical.
Later in life, there's going to be enough winning and losing. They're going to know that. Life's that way.
Switzer is one of only 3 head coaches to win both a college football national championship and a Super Bowl. He walked away from it all after just 4 years coaching America's team.
Life is very competitive, and to be successful, you got to go out there and do the things that are necessary for you to achieve for you and your family.
But some psychologists say the trophy generation we've created is generating a new set of problems.
It actually is changing their motivation status to solely want this reward.
Dr. Hillary Cawthon works with college and professional athletes, helping them with the mental part of the game.
We're teaching them that, okay, if I just show up and do bare minimum, then I can get a reward, or I should always get this reward. And it's not allowing them to learn how to work hard and be resilient in future endeavors.
Because again, at a certain age, the children who won the game are looking at the kids who lost, and everyone got a trophy. Winning doesn't mean anything, and losing doesn't need to be processed. In turn, that teaches adolescents that everything should go their way. Entitled behavior, even Switzer admits he sometimes displayed.
I learned in the Super Bowl and championship game in '94. We're out in San Francisco. Dion holds Michael Irvin on the sidelines on that game, and I raise hell about it, and I touch the official, and I know I'm not supposed to touch him, but I was emotionally upset, and I got a 15-yard penalty for it.
The Cowboys lost that year, but in that loss, Switzer says he learned the most valuable lessons, something a trophy can't teach. His Cowboys came back the following year and won the Super Bowl. For parents like Brandy, the goal is simple.
Prepare them for the real world.
Accepting life's challenges, win or lose.
There are thousands of books in this library, but what you're about to hear today isn't here. This is something that has been passed down through generations. This is the tale of how the bluebonnet became the state flower of Texas.
The year is 1901. Legislature was in session, and choosing the state flower was on the agenda.
This was a topic that resonated with many people.
But our state was divided.
You've got West Texas behind the prickly pear cactus, you have Central Texas behind the bluebonnet, and you have East Texas following the cotton boll.
But when the bluebonnet was proposed, many of the senators didn't know what this wild blue flower even was. A cry from the chamber echoed, "What the devil is a bluebonnet?" No one had a clear answer, except for these women, the colonial dames of America in Texas.
They were watching this and thinking, you've got to be kidding. I mean, it can't be the prickly pear, it can't be the cotton boll.
So these women took action.
They decided to take matters into their own hands.
They called a local artist, Maude Walker, asking for one of her paintings of these bluebonnets.
They went over to her studio, picked it up, carried it off to the Capitol, and put it on display on the floor of the legislature.
But if that wasn't enough,
they had little jars of bluebonnets that they placed on each politician's desk.
After this bold move, it has been said the floor grew silent before thunderous applause filled the room.
The bluebonnet obviously carried the day.
What was once a heated debate became a clear conclusion. The Texas bluebonnet would be our state flower.
So that passion you see from Texans year after year regarding their bluebonnets, it has been there from the start. This flower has a folklore to it. It has a life of its own, one that will continue to live on in the heart of our state.
And hey, maybe this story will be there one day too.